Hey guys, welcome to Thrive in Christ. Today I want to continue my Asperger's series, talk about different social issues that people have, and I'm going to talk about handling non-mutual relationships. Because when it comes to relationships with people, it's important for them to be mutual. It's important for both parties to be on the same page, and it's important, for both parties to know exactly where they stand. We treat each other with each other, and unfortunately, we don't always know that. And unfortunately, relationships can be tricky and relationships can be complicated. And unfortunately, especially when it comes to the opposite sex. And I'm going to talk about one particular way we can avoid non mutual relationships, especially with the opposite sex. And I don't mean to be sexist or anything, but there's a saying that goes, and you've probably heard it, that, women set the pace in relationships of any kind. The man usually follows. You've probably heard that, and that is true to an extent. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, but the fact is I think this can be taken in two extremes. Number one, some people will think, when it comes to the guys, they may have feelings for some girls, and the girls don't reciprocate that, and the guys are like, nah, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I really want this to happen. And that's when a guy should be a gentleman and respect the wishes of the female or the woman. It's the same thing, especially if you get into a non-mutual relationship with the opposite sex where it's toxic or where there's problems and stuff. It's important to always respect the the opposite sex's wishes on both ends. It's not just the guy respecting the girl's wishes. It's also the girls respecting the guy's wishes as well, because it's a mutual relationship. That's why it gets tricky, because a lot of times when it comes to some women, they want the idea of the relationship to be theirs when it comes to how they relate with guys. The problem is some women think it's all about what they want. And when a guy says no to it, it's like a temper tantrum starts forming. Because the girl wants this, and the guy says, I don't feel comfortable with that. And usually most women will be like, okay, I understand. But some girls think, well, this is what I want. And some guys may have had a soul tie issue with girls, and they want the relationship to be a certain way, and the girl's like, no, this is what I want. And that's when guys should be gentlemen, respect what the women want, but at the same time set boundaries in case the relationship is toxic on one or both ends. And God doesn't want us to be in toxic relationships, and God doesn't want us. And peace is usually our umpire. Peace of God will rule our hearts. So we know when our relationship is not giving us peace, we know something's wrong. And I've had this happen several times. I mean, I've had girls tell me they care about me. I don't mind that at all and appreciate that. But the problem was, one of them claimed to be friends with me at the time, and the problem was I didn't really have much of a relationship with her. I didn't really know her that well. And she was wanting me to confide in her and stuff, and the problem was, the way I put it is, she she just wanted to be a high and by acquaintance, pretty much. She just wanted to say hi or say how I was doing every now and then, but she didn't really want to be good friends with me, so I just didn't feel comfortable sharing on my heart with her. And the way I went about that was the wrong way and ended up exploding. And I've learned from that, but I eventually made things right with her, and everything's fine. But the fact is, sometimes we have to set boundaries in order to guard our heart and protect our heart, especially when it comes to the opposite sex. And sometimes, maybe you're a girl and a guy's wanting this and that, and you're like, no, I don't feel comfortable with that. Guys should respect that. Also the opposite way around as well. Maybe the girl you're wanting, they gotta follow what you want in the relationship, but the problem is the guys are not comfortable with that. And as girls, we should consider other people's wishes above ourselves. And part of loving our neighbor is respecting people and considering people's wishes above our own. Does that make sense? And I've had an issue recently where I had a friendship with someone. It started off pretty well, and then I realized this person didn't even want to talk to me that much in person. Like she hardly even speaks to me. But when it came to online, she was a chatterbox. She just kept talking to me all the time. Then in person, she just was nowhere to be found. And instead of confronting her about it, even though because women set the pace, I don't want to feel like I'm manipulating her. I just took a step back and I didn't share a lot of my problems with her. I shared a lot of my prayer requests with her. I just didn't let it bother me. And if she didn't want to talk to me in person, I just basically let her go and move forward. Because any time, especially in these two instances where I've had this same issue, where the girl didn't want to socialize with me, but she cared about me and stuff, I just kept her from a distance because I needed to guard my heart. And that's how we should approach things as well. It's not wrong for a guy to set boundaries with the opposite sex. It's not wrong to do that. I know girls set the pace. Doesn't mean that we should give them what they want necessarily if it's toxic. I know some guys are trapped in these toxic relationships. They don't know how to get out of them because it seems like the girl controls it. But I want to encourage you, for a guy, to just pray the Lord, give it to God in prayer, and ask God to help you lead you out of it, because God doesn't want us to be in toxic relationships and stuff. Some guys are married to, you know, women that control them and treat them horribly, and I feel sorry for them. And some ladies are married to guys who do the same thing, and that shouldn't happen. And that's why it's important to always practice doing mutual. Well, let's just make sure both of you are on the same page, and make sure that it's okay with both of you guys. Because, like I said, opposite sex relationships are very tricky, and sometimes people feel they get hurt really easily because one other person falls for the other person, and the other person doesn't reciprocate, and ends up being a really bad thing. That's why opposite sex friendships are often discouraged a lot, and especially in some churches because of that reason. That's why I want to encourage you, if you're in a type of situation where you're like, I want A with this person, and this person like, no, I want B, is to respect the other person's wishes, but at the same time, set boundaries and make sure if this is something you really want. And if you don't feel peace about it, don't go with it. Does that make sense? And don't wait until you're headlong into the relationship in order to try to get out of it. Because the more you get into it, the harder it is to get out. And that's why I want to encourage you. So that's my cat. And that's why I want to encourage you to make sure that your relationships are mutual. Make sure you feel at peace in those relationships. And always make sure to respect the other person's wishes, but at the same time set healthy boundaries yourself. Because once you get in those relationships, it's much harder to, get out of them once they're toxic. And you can't really force the other person to do anything. I mean, you're not in a contract, you're not in a business contract, so all you can do, is do the right thing and love one another and set healthy boundaries. And when you do, I can promise you can start having mutual relationships, and you can start avoiding a lot of the pitfalls of having imbalanced relationships with other people. And God bless you.